Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're digging into a whole collection of material centered around Trevor Noah, his observations, his stories.
That's right. We're mostly looking at excerpts from his stand-up comedy. It's this really rich mix, personal stories, sharp cultural commentary, and just that classic wit he has.
And our mission, really, is to unpack all of that, to see what insights we can pull out about different cultures, about societies, about the human experience itself. We want to find those connections he makes, the kind of surprising truths you find in the comedy.
Exactly. It's about looking at the world. Could be a hospital waiting room, could be an airport terminal, but seeing it through a specific lens. And why should you care? Well, because these stories, even though they're funny, they reveal some fascinating things about how we all get by, how we interact, how we see ourselves and, other people.
Okay, let's get started. We should probably jump right into a really dramatic, very personal story he tells the day his mother was shot. It starts with him getting woken up, right? Early Sunday morning.
Right, by a phone call. It's his 9-year-old brother, Isaac. And the way he tells it is, it's so striking. Even in this huge crisis, Isaac is incredibly polite.
I know, the description. Hello, Trevor. How are you? I'm fine, thank you. Are you busy? Sort of. Why? And then, because Mom's been shot. We're at the hospital. Can you come? Can you come?
Like he's asking him over for tea or something. It's such a jarring contrast, isn't it? That politeness against the violent reality.
Yeah, and Trevor describes his own reaction, just immediate panic. Fumbling around, clothes on backwards, searching for keys.
Tears starting as soon as he got in the car, trying to hold it together at the traffic lights.
He gets to the hospital, runs into the emergency section, and there's his little brother, Isaac, just standing calmly outside. But inside.
Chaos. He describes blood everywhere. And then he has this weird, almost detached thought right in the middle of the panic.
That doctors on TV shows look way better than real doctors.
Huh. Yeah, it's that strange intrusion of the mundane, right? But then comes this really bizarre interaction with a nurse.
Oh, this is wild. The nurse comes out, says, Mr. Noah, we've got your wife stabilized, and he's just, floored.
My wife. That's my mom.
And his immediate thought even then is, have you even looked? Have you seen the girls I date? It's incredible.
It says something about assumptions, maybe?
Right.
Right in the middle of this life or death situation, and then layered on top of all this personal drama is the whole healthcare system issue.
Right. The medical aid, his mom, apparently quite optimistic, had canceled it.
Because, as he says, she never gets sick.
Uh-huh. A common thing people do, I guess, but risky.
And now she's been shot, no coverage, and the hospital's first reaction, in his telling, is that they need to transfer her to a public hospital.
Even though, as he keeps saying, she's bleeding now, he knows what that transfer could mean to Lay's, maybe fewer resources when time is critical.
So he pulls out his credit card. I'll pay.
And the nurse warns him, it could be very expensive.
His reaction is just pure gut instinct.
Totally. This is my mom. Use the money. Go. What are you talking about? Expensive.
But then the cost updates start coming. And they are staggering.
900,000 Rand just for blood tests.
2 million Rand for x-rays.
And the surgery estimates are all over the place, 20,000 up to maybe 500,000 Rand.
And the nurse adding this incredibly dark, almost gallows humor element.
Yeah, starts talking about his mom's age 56, 57, it's almost finished, suggesting he should be saving for a funeral. And scones.
Funeral and scones. It's that kind of humor that just pops up in the worst moments.
So he's stressing about this massive potential debt, wondering what happens if she doesn't survive.
Noting that doctors don't exactly give refunds if the patient dies because, they tried. It's dark, but it hits on that financial fear alongside the emotional trauma.
But then the story takes a turn. It's a miracle, really. She wasn't as badly hurt as they first thought.
The bullets missed anything vital. Hit her head and lower buttocks region, he says.
But the head wound missed the spinal cord, nerves, brain. It hit the eye socket bone, deflected.
And just cut off a piece of her nostril.
Mm-hmm.
Incredible. A week later, she's basically recovered.
Yeah. And the final bill. After all those millions quoted.
Just 24,000 Rand.
Which he then connects, maybe as a coping thing, maybe just humor, to the exact amount he calculates he owes his mother only for the Ultra Mel custard he ate as a kid.
Around 25,000 Rand.
Yeah.
He completely dismisses owing her for anything else, like school.
I didn't ask to be born, that's your job.
It's a funny way to process it, right?
Yeah.
Using accounting and humor to deal with that immense stress and maybe deflect some guilt. But the whole story just throws that clash into sharp relief. Intense personal crisis versus these often absurd, bureaucratic, money-driven systems.
Absolutely. And how humor becomes this tool.
Yeah.
for survival, for understanding. And speaking of human reactions in crisis, there's also that bit with Isaac then, right after the phone call.
Yes, amidst his own terror, he realizes he hasn't checked on his brother. He asks Isaac if he's okay.
And Isaac's response, Trevor, can I come to your house and play PlayStation later today?
And Trevor just loses it. Understandably, maybe.
PlayStation, your mom's just been shot. He yells at him, says he'll never play PlayStation again.
And Isaac starts crying. But not about his mom.
Nope. About not getting to play Need for Speed?
Then this random woman steps in, tells Trevor to let him cry. That people process pain differently.
And Trevor argues back, saying no, he won't let him cry, criticizing spoiling kids, saying Isaac needs to learn priorities. It's a fascinating little snapshot of different views on trauma, parenting.
And how quick we are to judge reactions. This ability to dissect human behavior, especially in specific cultural settings, comes up again with his bit on flabbergasted white people.
Oh, this is brilliant. It's so specific. He describes that particular facial expression, right? The big exhale.
Usually over something pretty minor, like a slow supermarket queue with only one till open.
And the observation is that the only thing white people enjoy more than being flabbergasted is finding another white person to share it with.
Creating a super flabbergast, yeah. He jokes the combined exhaling power is why the Midwest has so many tornadoes.
It's hilarious, but it's also an insight, isn't it? How different groups might have these, performative ways of showing minor frustration, and how sharing even that small annoyance creates a bond.
He shifts from those minor quirks to something much bigger, more controversial, talking about South African figures, specifically Temsanka Jantji.
The sign language interpreter at Nelson Mandela's memorial global stage, really.
Huge. World leaders, millions watching. And the big issue, widely reported, was that Jantji apparently didn't know sign language.
But Noah, in his comedy, he presents Jantji's perspective in this really interesting way, almost twisted.
Yeah, he frames him as this sort of role model of opportunism. Someone who saw an obstacle, ignored the doubters.
And managed to get on the world stage, interpreting for the most powerful people. He even mentions Jantji had been the official government interpreter for 5 years.
And complaints apparently fell on deaf ears, as Noah puts it.
It pits that view, the con man, the fraud, against this alternative take. The guy who seized his chance. What's interesting is how Noah says he first suspected something was off.
And not because he knew sign language himself.
No, but because he knew President Zuma's speaking style. Slow, measured, calm.
Like he was reading Mandela's Wikipedia page slowly, Noah jokes, and Jantji signing. It had a completely different rhythm, no match at all.
The moment it apparently became obvious to the world was during Barack Obama's speech. 90 million people watching.
And Jantji just kept repeating the same 4 signs.
Over and over. Noah lists them. Greetings, circle, smoking, and get.
Can you imagine being a deaf person watching that? Trying to follow Obama's tribute and just getting greetings, circle, smoking. You'd think the speech was nonsense or something was terribly wrong.
It just highlights that massive communication breakdown, right? And how something meant for inclusion became the opposite. It's a wild story about perception versus reality.
Totally. And speaking of perception and inclusion, this links to a personal rule Noah had that he later changed.
He used to avoid making jokes about disabled people, didn't want to offend them.
Right, a protective instinct. But it shifted after he performed for the South African Paralympic team, whose official name, by the way, was unbelievable.
Amakroko Kroko, which apparently means the broken things, or crocs.
The broken things. Anyway, after the show, he meets an athlete, partially deaf, who's a fan.
And the athlete asks him straight up, why do you never make jokes about deaf people?
Noah explains his reasoning not wanting to hurt or offend.
And the athlete's response is so powerful. He asks why they'd be hurt. They know they're deaf. He says they don't want to be excluded from the comedy. They want to be in the jokes like everyone else, to be the one who doesn't name things sometimes.
And he makes this crucial point. Often, it's hearing people who get offended on behalf of deaf people.
People who can hear complain on your behalf.
The athlete's advice was just blunt. Fucking up is easy for you. No, just make the joke, and then we move on. And if people complain, don't leave them.
It's such a challenge to that kind of cautious exclusion, isn't it? True inclusion means being part of everything, even the jokes.
Yeah, it really makes you rethink who gets to decide what's offensive. And this theme of contrasting perspectives, especially between cultures, carries right on when he talks about police interactions. South Africa versus America.
He paints the relationship with police in South Africa as more civil, almost like a game. You can argue, negotiate.
No, license, letter. What are we doing now? Lum. That hinting at, maybe sorting things out informally. It feels less life or death, more like we're in this together.
Whereas in America, being pulled over is, in his words, a stressful experience. A game show where you're desperately trying to guess the right answer because the wrong attitude
Can escalate things fast.
Yeah.
He tells that story about being pulled over, asking the cop why, shouldn't you know why, and how fast he was going. Didn't you check your notes?
And the cop estimated his speed, 100 miles an hour.
The idea of an estimated speed just cracked him up. What does 100 look like?
Meanwhile, his friend in the car is freaking out. Shut up, Trevor. You're going to get us killed.
And he connects this immediate fear to the awful reality of police shootings in the U.S. He notes the disproportionate impact on Black Americans, but also that white Americans get shot too. He describes U.S. police as trigger-happy, shoot first, ask questions later.
People shot for reaching for a wallet. Such a stark contrast to his description of South Africa, where the conversation, the negotiation, is constant.
He jokes you might get shot in FSA for not pulling out your wallet, for not engaging in that negotiation.
South African police are part of the scene. Check the numbers, 160, so what are we doing now?
Yeah.
It highlights how different the fundamental relationship between citizens and police can feel based on context and history.
Absolutely. The perceived stakes are just so different. He even jokes about sending SA police to America to teach a functional police force that's not always threatening to end your life, picturing Sergeant Matula resolving standoffs with talk.
He also touches on those broader cultural perceptions tied to being African, that story in Atlanta.
Right, the heat. Someone says, you must be used to this being from Africa.
And his comeback is perfect, saying he's afraid to jog there because if he fainted, the headline would be, even Africans are fainting. It just cuts through that lazy, monolithic view of Africa.
He does the same with language differences in America. Jokes that Americans have pimped English.
The examples are great. Her versus her, aunt versus aunt.
Leading to that confusion about his friend's dead aunt.
Yeah, or battery versus battery, which he says sounds like it's sponsored by Chris Brown.
And the classic zebra versus zebra, his punchline. You cannot name them because you do not have them. These little things reveal so much about cultural divergence, history.
Then he takes on the U.S. measurement system. Imperial. Calls it imaginary, inconsistent.
Focusing on the abbreviations. Milligrams is mg, makes sense. Ounces is oz, no z.
But pounds being lbs is his favorite. He jokes it stands for a lot of bullshit.
Leading him to ask for a 2 labs bag of sugar.
He points out the absurdity. Even American drug dealers switch to metric. Because it's logical. It works.
It's funny how sometimes practicality just wins out, even over long-held traditions.
And finally, in this sort of section, he looks at the Ku Klux Klan name. Specifically, Klan with a K.
He mentions its supposed Greek origin, Ku Klux Elon, meaning a circle of brothers.
And just lays bare the contradiction, a hate group calling themselves a circle of brothers, and he jokes about what Greek circles of brothers were historically known for, being very loving.
And that dark joke about the sheets needing one more hole. It uses humor to expose that hypocrisy, the twisting of language and symbols.
Okay, so moving from those cultural specifics, let's talk about how he discusses navigating identity and perception, especially, after becoming famous and moving to America.
Right. He mentions getting comments from South Africans back home. Don't forget us. And especially, don't lose your accent.
He talks about the stress that caused. Practicing his accent on the plane home, feeling anxious.
It touches on that pressure people feel when they succeed internationally, doesn't it? Becoming a representative expected not to change. The accent is a huge symbol of that.
He says he loves accents, sees them as tools for communication, for bridging gaps. But also the danger doing them wrong can seem racist, mocking.
And he shares that really telling observation about white South Africans changing their accent when talking to Black people, like at petrol stations.
Using that kind of language. Sharp, sharp man, full tanky, pressure pumpy, good Joby, tanky boss. He admits his first reaction was anger, thinking it was purely condescending.
But then he had that experience at Gold Reef City. The security guard couldn't understand his name, Trevor.
Not until his friend leaned over and said it differently, get Trevor.
And that gave him a new perspective. Maybe sometimes those accent changes aren't just racism, but clumsy, misguided attempts to connect or be understood across divides. But they still miss the point.
Which led to his rule. An accent is not a measurement of intelligence. Don't talk down to people. Speak normally. Maybe try to learn their accent out of respect, rather than simplifying yours.
It's a nuanced take on communication across those barriers. He contrasts it with the French restaurant thing, people suddenly putting on French accents to order.
But only in French restaurants. He finds it baffling, especially since, as he jokes, the French waiters aren't going to start saying "start portion" or shaving of the borwers back at them.
It's about performing a certain kind of cultural identity in a very specific, limited way, isn't it? For status, maybe.
Which leads him right into being labeled black in America. This is fascinating.
He tells about an American telling him, point blank, in the U.S., you'd be black. And his first thought was, wow, I want to be black.
But then he unpacks the nuance he observed. Yes, mixed-race people often get categorized as black, but there's a catch, as he puts it.
You often have to be liked, successful, famous first. Then you get upgraded to black.
He uses examples: Alicia Keys, Mariah Carey, Tiger Woods, all mixed race, but often just called black once they hit it big.
And Barack Obama is the prime example, the mixed candidate while running.
But the first black president after winning?
He even points out how comedians' language shifted from calling Obama a crazy-ass mixed fool before the election to my nigga afterwards. It's a really sharp observation about how fluid and context-dependent racial labels can be in the U.S.
So based on this, he jokes he decided to move to America specifically to be black.
And he describes the 18-hour flight as practice, watching movies, TV shows.
Practicing lines. King Kong ain't got shit on me. What are you talking about, Willis? Landing fluent in black American culture.
He talks about feeling like cool black, specifically American black, which he calls the coolest black in the world. He says coming from the black factory in Africa, he knows all the shades.
And he acknowledges the huge global influence of black American culture. Music, jazz, hip-hop, R&B style, swag.
Even down to observing the way people walk. That bounce that American black people add, making it look cool, purposeful. He jokes about assassins needing it and Obama having that little bounce.
And the speech. Black American English, he calls it the most amazing use of English, with no regard to punctuation.
He gives examples from a conversation in Baltimore. Phrases like, let me holler at you, ain't even going front, yellow bones out there in the motherland, peasting, mofo got flow.
His breakdown of nah mean is brilliant. Not quite a question, not quite a statement.
Just sums everything up. He wishes he'd known about it earlier, feels like he wasted years. It all paints this picture of identity as dynamic, performative, incredibly influential, especially black American identity.
Okay, let's shift from identity to more practical stuff like travel. He kicks off one section with that funny analogy comparing comedy to sex.
Right. Comedian man, audience woman, success judged by noise, feels one-sided, first time is awkward. He uses it to explain his own nerves before performing.
Then he gets into observations about flying, pilots specifically, how calm they are.
Making those announcements, altitude, speed, plane type, crew names that seem kind of useless but are actually just there to reassure everyone, keep things feeling normal.
His fear kicks in when they stop talking, especially when things go wrong. He contrasts the calm announcements with real bad turbulence.
People panicking, knuckles white, except the air hostesses, who seem like their lower half not connected, just gliding calmly through the chaos.
He quotes a pilot during a storm. Slight turbulence, refrain from using the later, no hot drinks. All very calm, but the sign-off.
I'll speak to you in a moment once we've gotten out of this bumpy patch. That's the bit that chills you, right? Will that moment ever come?
He mentions that real incident, the nationwide flight losing an engine with no announcement from the pilot. He says he wants warning before he dies, time to pray, forgive enemies.
He jokes about people arriving in heaven totally confused because they had no idea it was coming.
And contrast that with taxi drivers. He jokes they will definitely tell you you're about to die right before the impact.
So people arriving in heaven from taxi crashes, they know exactly what happened. Dead, 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 dead. Yeah, no, we dead. It's that dark humor again, looking at how different situations prepare you or don't.
Landing safely in Johannesburg, people often clap. But the real sign you're back in South Africa, he says.
The airport announcements.
He contrasts the global standard, calm, monotone woman, even in places like China,
with South Africa, where it's whoever's closest to the mic. Often a woman, but shouting, talking to colleagues in the background. Chicken, chicken, yeah. Stick, changing gates, mid-announcement, telling people to phone their lifts.
and ending with a casual bye-bye. It's those small details again, showing massive cultural differences in formality and style, even within supposedly standard systems like airports.
He talks about traveling within SA to PE, Cape Town, East London, Durban. Calls it a schlep because of rain, delays, which brings him to overbooking.
Describes it as a legal practice. Airlines selling more suits than they have, hoping for no-shows.
Like a taxi, he says. but they just don't let you board if everyone turns up. He paints this picture of the frantic woman at the counter typing away, maybe on Facebook. Another one here, you overbooking, dead, dead.
But he notes this faux pas, as he calls it, sometimes gets him upgraded to business class.
Which leads to that great observation about the conversations you overhear. Business class, mergers, stock portfolio, shareholders.
Economy class, I thought you put it in the bag, goes on the tab. It just captures those different worlds, different concerns, right there on the same plane.
Then there's South African airport security.
Yeah.
He describes it as chilled out, basically an honesty system.
Very different from overseas security, where you take off everything: shoes, belt, jacket, hoodie, cap, rings, coins, even big fillings. But it's my teeth.
SA security guards, he jokes, seem unsure about their own equipment. The metal detector boops, but they use the wand anyway. They just love the wand.
And after the wand check, they still ask, any weapons?
He compares the wand to a Star Wars lightsaber, joking about a township guy having one, and the awkwardness if Darth Vader tried the "I am your father" line after all those years. No, look there. It's your father. Ooh.
And finally, the honesty book you find at townhouses or offices in SA.
Name, surname, phone address, reason for visit, usually just PVT for private visit.
He asks the guard what the point is. The guard explains. So if you do anything bad, like steal or kill someone, they can find you because you wrote your real name.
The honest killer strikes again. No what jokes.
He asks what happens if he does kill someone. The guard says he'll just phone him and tell him to come back. It's just... These examples show how systems for safety or rules can become purely performative, almost illogical, revealing a very different cultural take on trust and procedure.
Okay, final section. He uses satire here to look at history, specifically colonization. He makes a distinction first.
Right. Conquering, taking land, resources, killing people. He says that's understandable in a brutal way, not condoned, but you get the motive. But colonization, forcing people to become you that, he presents as truly strange, absurd almost.
And he uses the British in India as his main example.
Yeah.
Sets up this satirical dialogue between a newly arrived British colonizer and an Indian person.
Paints the scene. Brit arrives, declares India is now under the empire. The Indian asks about the queen, then about her god.
Which god? Asks the Indian. His name is God, says the Brit. The Indian lists his own many gods.
The Brit demands worship of this nameless god. The Indian is completely baffled. How do you even pray to a god with no name? Oh, dear God, I was open. No, sorry, not you, other God.
The Brit tries asserting authority. Do you know who I am? The Indian fires back perfectly. You didn't introduce yourself.
Then the Brit claims, Great Britain. And the Indian's response is just fantastic. You called yourselves great. Shouldn't you wait for others?
And then counters with, welcome to Great India. It completely turns the tables.
The Indian's observations about the British guy's appearance are devastatingly funny, too. Calling him a madman, crazy, looking, not feeling too right, like he died last week.
Is it wrong with your skin? Never seen anybody with that complexion looking like they're playing. Didn't seek with the sun. Translucent.
You can see his veins. A doctor could see his kidney without an x-ray. It totally flips that colonial gaze, right? The colonizer becomes the strange, unhealthy, bizarre-looking one.
Exactly. And the final exchange just seals the absurdity. Brit says, we will run this country now. Indian refuses. We will not obey you. You are madmen. Brit says, we will take it then.
And the Indian just dismisses him. She is all yours. Take. Don't play that take. It strips away all the self-importance and justification from the colonial project, exposing the arrogance and illogic through humor from the perspective of the colonized.
So we've covered a lot today. We've journeyed through this really remarkable collection of stories, of observations.
Yeah, everything from intense family crises and, the weirdness of healthcare systems to all those cultural quirks, police interactions, the whole complexity of identity.
And even that sharp satire on colonization. What really stands out, I think, is how easily our assumptions about the world, about other cultures, even about ourselves, can get shaken up when you look through a different lens.
Especially a lens as sharp and, insightful as this one. You really see how much our context shapes our reality.
Totally. How a simple traffic stop or an airport announcement can mean completely different things depending on where you are. Or how identity isn't fixed, how it's built and seen and even performed differently.
So here's maybe a final thought for you, the listener, to chew on. If accents aren't a measure of intelligence, if the systems we rely on can be fundamentally illogical, and if basic human interactions dealing with authority, showing frustration varies so wildly across cultures.
What other assumptions are you holding on to? What deeply held beliefs might just be waiting for their own moment to be completely, utterly flabbergasted?